You're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
4 seconds left. In front. Happy moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won the first Stanley Cup. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. Lightning strikes twice. The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup.
Hello everybody and welcome back to RBLR Lightning. My name is Jake Ricker and alongside me is Chris Glazer. Producing for us as always is Eureka Wheeler. Chris, we got about a week into the season now. We have a lot to talk about so far. And I think, if you look at the fan base and what we've seen so far, I think it's about ready to fire Cooper and sell the team and just restart here, right? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
We got a lot to talk about today, though. But before we get into all of that, I just want to see how you're doing today.
Doing good, man. Yeah, you're right. We're a weekend, so you kind of got to get a feel for the team a little bit. Don't want to rush to too much here, but a couple ups and a couple downs. So definitely ready to talk about the games that we just watched these past couple days.
Yes, well, we will go down and get into breaking down all of the games that have taken place so far, 4 games in total. But first, couple of news that I think we should get to and talk about first. One exciting thing is that tomorrow, October 21st, so tomorrow as of this recording, the Tampa Bay Lightning will be announcing their brand new Stanley Cup playoff championship rings, which will be very exciting. That takes place tomorrow. They're having a little party, I believe. I don't know when the announcement exactly comes out, but the Lightning will be unveiling their back-to-back Stanley Cup champion rings. They knocked it out of the park with last year's ring. I mean, that thing was just absolutely stunning with the turning Stanley Cup to reveal the this series where they went to Sweden, and it was one of the coolest rings I personally had ever seen. It was a huge step up from the 04 ring, and many people are wondering how are they going to top that this year. I don't know if you guys have kept up with some of the other teams like the Buccaneers and the Milwaukee Bucks. They just released their championship ring. The Milwaukee Bucks one turns into a necklace, actually, which is pretty cool. The Bucks had a little image of their own stadium inside the ring. I mean, these teams have gone way above any expectations I ever had, so I cannot wait to see what the Lightning do with their ring.
Yeah, if it's anything like last year's, that thing is going to be crazy because it's beautiful. It's very, very well created, man. It's pretty cool the stuff you can do in 2020, 2021, man. It's definitely one of the cooler rings I've ever seen. I'm not an NBA guy, so I don't watch much of their stuff, but man, if it's, I'm hoping it's it's got the back-to-back in there somehow, some way. I think that'd be cool if they got that written in there. I'm kind of hoping that's, squiggled in there somewhere. I think that would be cool, but definitely looking forward to seeing the new ones come out.
It'll be exciting. So we'll be able to cover that next time we record when we know more about what the rings look like and all of the details. But look out for that tomorrow, though. So that should be exciting. The next news we're going to talk about, and we'll get a little bit this into more when we talk about the specific game that happened. But unfortunately, Lightning are dealing with yet another injury to a big-name player, and that is Nikita Kucharov, who went down with what we believe to be a groin injury. I don't think they've actually disclosed what it is, but if you look at the replay of where he got hurt, it looks like it was the groin area. Still a lot up in the air about this injury. We really don't have a set timetable. The latest I've heard is about 6 to 8 weeks is what they're thinking. Sergachev kind of made a joke about the whole thing when he said, he was talking to reporters, and he said, don't worry, Kuch will be back for the Olympics and the playoffs. That obviously in relation to last year when Kucherov got hurt and missed the entire regular season, and a lot of people took issue with that, with Kucherov returning during the regular season, Lightning having the LTIR space that they use to pick up a couple of minor players. But Cooper did say that he doesn't expect Kuch to miss more games than he did last year, and this is a fully 2-game schedule. So most signs are pointing to he's going to miss a decent amount of time, but it's not going to be the entire regular season, and he should be back before the Olympics, ideally. So we'll have to wait and see when we get more of an official timetable. But Chris, obviously a bummer to lose a guy like Nikita Kucharov again, who is, one of the top 5 players in most people's mind in the NHL. I mean, that's a real loss for the Lightning.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely not a Lightning season unless Stammer or Kuch is hurt, right? I mean, it seems to be every other
Unfortunately.
season now. It's one of our main stars going down, and we're having to next man, excuse me, next man up mentality, which kind of worries me now because a lot of the guys that we were calling up last year or we had down there, they're on the team now or they've been brought up, and we lost some guys. So obviously no one can replace Kuch. You can't. You just can't. And we survived last year without him. But I think this year could be a little more difficult just because, like I said, the teams, this is a lot of new faces on this team this year. So I think that you can kind of see the struggle so far of them, get gelling and get things going. So I think it's going to definitely be harder this year to replace him and probably harder to win more games without him this year than it was last year. And that's only because of the depth, and who knows, we could also get more injuries. Hockey's tough. So we just got to be ready for that. But it's definitely a bummer, and I'm hoping he can come back healthy and be ready for the playoffs again.
Yeah, well, hopefully he'll be back before the playoffs and he'll be able to start helping us out during the regular season. But I want to talk about, too, a little bit about the LTIR situation for the Bolts because Kucherov was put on long-term injured reserve. Of course, to the expense of every Bolts fan, every other fan in the NHL, of course, immediately started making what they think are very funny jokes about the Lightning and their LTIR, the whole situation. But
Yep.
from the initial reports, it doesn't sound like Kucherov is going to be out for the whole season. And if that's the case, when Kucherov comes back, obviously the Lightning will have to be cap compliant again. So really, there's not much they can do with that cap space. Now, unfortunately, Cat Friendly was talking about this, and I wish they wouldn't even put this idea in people's minds, but technically the Lightning could trade for a player and put them on long-term injured reserve while Kucherov is out, and then when that player is then healthy and ready to come back for the playoffs, then he can come back for the playoffs. So there is a way the Lightning could, quote unquote, manipulate this. Obviously, they're not going to do anything like that. Kucherov, you don't want to lose Nikita Kucharov, who's arguably a top 5 player. I know he doesn't want to miss this huge amount of time again, but I won't get into any of that. But really for the Lightning, what this means as in cap space wise is it makes it a little bit easier. It is a little bit of wiggle room when calling players up from from Syracuse, because we saw when Schuster had to be called up, the Lightning had to put another player on long-term injured reserve, and it's been a little more difficult that because they were so close up against the cap when they had these injuries, everybody had to go on long-term injured reserve, which means you have to be out for a certain period of time, which has made things tough for the Bolts. But now with Kucherov's $9.5 million off the books, obviously that makes it a lot more easier. But when it comes to actually trading for players or using it to their advantage for the playoffs, this really doesn't help benefit the Lightning at all. There is technically a scenario in which they could do it, but I believe Kucherov is going to be back, hopefully even before the trade deadline. And there is just no scenario where the Lightning would do that to cheat, obviously, because they're not going to do that. They didn't do it in the years before, but that's the situation with long-term injured reserve.
Yeah, and obviously, this is just tough, man. It's a bummer because it's early in the season, and you just hate to see a guy like Kuch go down. Like I said, I think like I said, you can't replace him, but even call-ups now, it's going to be tough, man. It's a lot of new faces. So, like I said, I think last year, it was obviously you don't want to lose Kuch, but I think we played well without him. We had a solid season last year without him. So, we've done it before, and it looks like we're gonna have to do it again, at least for a little bit. We don't know the details yet, so. I did see some comments, like you said, 6 to 8 weeks, I saw groin also. So if that's the case, he's got to come back and ease his way in. You don't want to rehash that injury later on in the season, especially playoffs, because we all know how tough playoffs can be. So it's going to be a bummer, and it's really going to be hard to replace him during the season.
Right, and the big question is, will he have surgery? We don't know that as of right now. Obviously, if he has surgery, it's a much longer recovery time. If he doesn't, he could be back sooner than expected. But let's talk about some of these games. We got 4 games to talk about, and all of them, Chris, were just kind of unique in their own way, for better or for worse. But the first game, obviously, was a season opener where the Lightning would raise their banner up to the rafters. The festivities all before the game were a ton of fun to watch. That game also on ESPN, the first game, the Lightning played on national television this year, and the first one back on ESPN. And Chris, I'll get your thoughts on ESPN as well. I thought they did a pretty decent job with their coverage. It is their first game back. I've liked what I've seen from these new national broadcasts, so that's exciting as well. But unfortunately for the Lightning, the fun all kind of ended as soon as the puck dropped, because the Lightning would go on to lose this game by a final score of 6-2. It wasn't a pretty game. The Lightning could only score when they had an empty net. The Pens did score a couple empty net goals as well, so that kind of inflated the score, but it just seemed like the Lightning were a step behind this entire game through. I mean, there was just everything that could go wrong did go wrong in this game. No success on the power play, not really much success on the penalty kill. They did have a little bit there, but 5-on-5 wasn't good. They were taking penalties. The passes weren't crisp. They couldn't enter the zone. I mean, this was what you would call a disastrous start to the season. Now, it was just only one game, but definitely not ideal for the Lightning to get off to that kind of start.
No, it was, man, it was rough. I could kind of tell from the beginning, like, I felt like the energy was in the building, and, the crowds are back, and like you were talking about ESPN, I think ESPN I think they did do a good job. I think, with the crowds being back, I think it made it even better, man. Like, I felt like I was watching Chicago and, the Islanders last night too during intermission, and their crowd was wild. So, and I think ESPN is doing a great job. So, but the game itself, man, we came out. It was slow. It was a slow start. We came out really slow. I didn't feel the energy. Felt the energy in the building, but from the team, just a lot of sloppy passes. I mean, they outshot us, 35-28. Face-off percentage, we played pretty well, but the power play's been, just rough start on the power play. Defense looks sloppy, and I don't know if we were just going in there thinking, there's no Crosby, there's no Malkin, or we're gonna, we're raising the banner, we got this in the bag, and I think we kind of just let Pittsburgh slip by there a little bit, and obviously, we know what we're capable of. No one expected Vasi to give up 6 goals. It was all around, to me, just a really bad first game of the season, bad vibes. So definitely not something you want to see, but it is also something that I expected to see. It's going to be a slow start for these guys until we can get these lines going, get the team gelling, get the team working together more, and get out there and actually play on the ice together instead of preseason and practice. So I think we're looking at it halfway through the season. We'll start to see things click, but game 1 was definitely not the outcome I wanted.
Well, after game 1, the Bolts would go on to travel to Detroit for their first road game of the season, second game of the season, obviously looking to get even in the record, go to 1-1. A lot of fans expected the Lightning to take care of business again in this game because Detroit is still not back to where they were, years ago where they were making the playoffs. They're getting better. That's definitely they've been improving, but on paper, the Lightning are a much better team than Detroit is still. But going into this game, you thought it was going to be a slow, easy game, but that's anything but what this game was. It was a crazy game. Final score ended up being 7-6 for the Lightning in overtime. But Detroit got off to an early 3-0 lead. It was 2-0 by the end of it was 1-0 by the end of the first period. In the second period, they get off to a quick 3-0 lead, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, are we really going to be 0-2 and losing to Detroit? What's going on with this team? Palat responded in that game. He made it 3-1. Detroit comes right back and makes it 4-1, and then Stamkos, he's able to score 2 goals. He's been on a mission. We'll talk a little bit more about him later, but he pulls the Lightning within 1. You're thinking, okay, we still got a chance to come back and win this game, and then Detroit comes right back and makes it a 6-3 game again, and they're up by 3 goals. I mean, it was just a crazy back and forth, crazy bounces. Nobody could have any good defense, but then Ross Colton gets one back for the Lightning. They're now down by 2 again, and then Chris, this is where Detroit made the biggest mistake of this game, and they played the one song that you cannot play in hockey, which is Sweet Caroline. And as soon as I heard those fans singing that song, I remember texting everybody I knew. I was like, the Lightning are going to come back in this game, just you watch. And sure enough, after that song, Kucharov and Killorn score the next 2 goals. They tie the game, and there's just a couple minutes left at this point as well, and send it into overtime. And then the Lightning, absolutely dominated in that overtime period. I believe Detroit touched the puck technically once, and that was just to clear it, and the Lightning got the puck right back after that, and just they never let Detroit get a single chance. And it was Andre Palat who finally put it in the back of the net to end it and give the Lightning the win and improve back to 2-2. So a lot to talk about in this game, but it was Chris, to me, one of the craziest games I think I've ever witnessed the Lightning play in recent memory.
Yeah, wow, man. Second game of the season. That was a playoff game, man. That was a wild game, man. That was up and down and all kinds of emotions and back and forth. And man, being down by 3 goals and able to come back from that, it says a lot. It shows really what we're capable of when we do it. Just imagine if we played defense that game, we could have won 7-0 possibility with the way our offense was playing that game. So. Yeah, man, crazy game, crazy stats in this game. Everyone got on the scoreboard. Kuch, Killorn, Colton, Palat with 2, Stamkos with 2, who's just playing out of his mind right now. Rough day for the goalies, but man, tons of penalty minutes. Lots of power plays. Just overall, just a crazy game, man. I genuinely felt bad for Vasi, but I think he's glad that the team was able to pull it out and get the win.
Absolutely. I mean, 6 goals in the first 2 games was a little bit of a concern, I think, for a lot of Lightning fans, but there were a lot of crazy bounces. There was no defense in this game whatsoever, but I think the Lightning, were excited, obviously, to get that huge comeback win. Anytime you can do that when you're down big and, it's an 82 game schedule. You have to win games like this sometimes. At the end of the day, a win is a win. And it doesn't matter how you get it. Sometimes they're not always super pretty. And that's what this game was. But it was definitely a thrilling one, that's for sure. I know I was jumping up and down in my room watching that game when Lightning made that comeback and would ultimately win the game. But moving on to game number 3, the Lightning were on the road again for this one, this time taking on the Washington Capitals in the nation's capital. This game, I thought, Chris, was the best game of the season so far. I was really impressed with the Lightning coming into this game. They hadn't played too well with the first 2 games against the Pens and Detroit, giving up, as I mentioned, 12 goals in total now in that game, even though some of those were empty netters in that Pittsburgh game. But just, shaky, and you're going against the Capitals, who are a very good team, obviously with Alex Ovechkin, who's still on a mission to try and get close to that Wayne Gretzky's goal record. But the Lightning played really, really well. It was a very tightly contested game. It was back and forth both ways. It wasn't until the second period where Ovechkin finally got the first goal of the game and was able to give the Capitals a 1-0 lead. But in the third period, Sergachev responded, tied the game for the Lightning. We would go back to overtime again for the second consecutive night. And then who else but Steven Stamkos with, I believe, about 20 seconds left, goes all the way down end to end to the other end of the ice, makes a beautiful shot, and gives the Lightning their second win of the season in overtime. And but just a really another fun game to watch. It was the complete opposite of what we saw in Detroit, of that really high scoring game. This was a very low scoring game, and we kind of got back that vintage Vasi.
Yeah, definitely much more a Lightning hockey game to me. We played really well overall. Still took quite a few penalties. We still got to cut down the penalties a little bit. Too much for me, just taking dumb penalties. But we got some younger guys in there, so it could be learning curves for them. But overall, yeah, I mean, obviously, Vasi looked much better. Defense looked much better. Stamkos once again on a mission. Great play in overtime. Stam being our captain this year, man. You can tell he's feeling good. He's healthy. So he's out there, putting the team on his back, man, doing what a captain's supposed to do. We did pretty well at shutting down Ovechkin, minus his 1 goal, and but other than that, to give up 1 goal to Washington, I think that was a huge boost, man, especially after giving up back-to-back games of giving up 6 goals, and then obviously traveling to Washington. We don't always play the best there, so big win. It's early in the season, but I think this is one of the better wins early on for sure so far.
Absolutely. I thought they impressed. And you mentioned the penalties, and you're absolutely right. That's been an issue for the Lightning for who knows how long now. Yeah, it's been an issue for a while where they just consistently take so many penalties, and it always comes back to bite them.
Always dumb ones too.
Right.
Dumb
Well, you look
ones.
at the overtime one where Sergachev was called for cross-checking. I know he wasn't happy about it, but that's something you just cannot do in overtime against the Capitals, who have one of the best goal scorers of our generation. Kucharov gave him a shove like 3 different times, and you knew that was going to get called at
Right.
some point. But luckily, the Lightning's penalty killing unit, like for the last couple of years as well, has been really good. They've been very, very solid. I'll get to one of the players on the penalty kill that I've been really impressive from this week, but luckily they came through and Lightning were able to end it in overtime to get their second win of the season. But moving on to the last game we have to talk about, it was game number 4 of the season. It took place last night as of this recording. I was lucky enough to be at that game, Chris. It was a ton of fun. Let me tell you, it was the Lightning versus Panthers game. It felt like almost a playoff atmosphere again. These games against the Panthers have become a lot of fun, although I cannot stand the Florida Panther fans that show up to the arena. They do drive me a little bit crazy, but they become really fun. They're intense games. They're back and forth. A couple of years ago, the Lightning would win these games 6-2 almost every single time. But as of late, they have become much closer, and the Florida Panthers, they're a very good hockey team and definitely a contender, I believe now. And unfortunately, despite how fun this game was and the energy in the building once again, it did not end well for the Lightning, as they've lost this game by a score of 4-1 and would fall to 2-2 as their overall record. But again, I don't know about you, Chris, but it just looked like they were a step behind in this game. They have not scored the first goal of any game so far this season, which is a little bit concerning. They were 0 for 6 on the power play. I mean, I don't know how that happens. I mean, when you have 6 power plays, especially with guys like Steven Stamkos, obviously they did not have Nikita Kucharov in this game, but still, you have one of the best power plays in the NHL, and you can't even convert once. So that was a big issue for them. They did take a pretty decent amount of penalties themselves as well in this game. And obviously losing to Florida in your own building is always frustrating, and another disappointing game for the Bolts here in game 4, and they're now sitting at 2-2.
Yes, disappointing loss, but I think we played well last night. We had a lot of good opportunities. Maroon had the breakaway where he just flustered the puck, and if it would have been a beer, he probably would have controlled it better, because we all know Maroon loves his beer. But anyways, thanks, Maroon. Joseph had that breakaway, and he missed it, and we had some really good chances. Knight was on. Knight, we played very well. I think we looked good, but we still lost, and that's because obviously we couldn't capitalize in the power play, which needs work. It needs work, and it's going to take time with these younger guys. You could see some changes coming up here for power play 1 and power play 2. Mix up the lines a little bit. You got to mix it up. If something's not working, mix with the rhythm a little bit. We're still early in the season. We're still learning about this team and these new guys, so we don't need to rush. We can take our time. We're still going to be fine, I think, at the end of the year. So power plays definitely got to improve. Can't go 0 for 6. Obviously, I don't want to lose to Florida at home. It stinks, but Florida's a good team this year, man. They got a shot at winning the division. A lot of talented guys in that roster. So I don't think Florida's a walk in the park at all anymore, man. These are going to be tough games all year, so we got to be ready for them. But I do think there was some positives with the forecheck and the offense last night. I think they had their chances, just wasn't their night. Puck luck, saves, deflections, and obviously missing some breakaways. So I think we're heading in the right direction. I think we'll get things going, and definitely looking forward to the next couple games.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. And like you mentioned, this is game 4 of 82. There's a lot of new guys on this team. It's going to take some time. There's no reason to hit the panic button just yet, although there are some major issues that the Lightning are going to need to work on. But usually the Lightning are pretty good at fixing those things, and we all know how good they are in games after a loss. So if they can continue to fix these things moving forward, they should be okay. They've definitely gotten better from the first 2 games, I believe. They've been letting up a little less goals, which is good. I mean, the defense has come back a little bit. We are dealing with some injuries, which you don't want it to be an excuse. But it was definitely an improvement, I would believe. Let me ask you this, Chris, though. What do you think the issue with the power play has been? I mean, they've scored a couple of goals on the power play, but last night 0 for 6. I mean, that is a big issue in my mind. I was talking about it with some people about this after the game, and it seemed like the Lightning top unit is still one of the best. They're really good. Anytime you have Steven Stamkos, Braden Point, Killorn, Hedman out there. Andre Palat was the one on the top power play unit last night, although it seems like the Lightning are going to be making some changes to that top unit. It seems like Corey Perry was getting a mix on there from the latest practice reports, but it seems like that second unit just, is never able to get anything going, and I feel like that's been part of the problem for this Lightning power play is that they have such a high threat with this first unit, but once that first minute goes up, if they're not able to get one in the back of the net, it just seems like they don't have a chance to score for the rest of the power play. But I wanted to ask you, what do you think the biggest issue with this Lightning power play is right now?
Honestly, right now, I think just missing Kuch really hurts them because I think teams can cheat a little more towards Stamkos now. They know that more than likely the passes are going to be coming his way with Kuch not being there. You're not going to expect Palat to bury it from out there. Palat can score, but obviously Kucharov can almost score from anywhere on the ice. So I think teams now are going to start cheating a little more on Stamkos and kind of taking him out of the equation, making us have to, mix it up a little more, take some more shots on the blue line. Maybe let Hedman rip a couple and hope for a deflection. I think our defensemen need to shoot more sometimes. I think we all know Sergachev's got a great shot. He can shoot, man, but he's pass happy sometimes, and I wish he would shoot more. So maybe be a little more aggressive with Sergachev and our defensemen. Let him fire away from the blue line. Maybe hope for a tip, a deflection, a rebound, anything to get the momentum going. I think that's what it's going to take.
Lightning power play is at 15th in the league right now at 20%. It is still very early in the season, so you have a lot of teams that have like 50% power plays, which is not normal, obviously. Some teams even have 0% just because there hasn't been a ton of games to go through, but hopefully they can start to figure that out. As I mentioned earlier, the Lightning have been trying out with some new lines. They're going to be out without Nikita Kucharov, so they're going to need to somehow make up for that. So we'll see what Cooper is able to come up with. And hopefully get the boys back on track, especially in that power play department, because when you have 6 power plays, that's something you definitely need to be scoring on at least one of them, which would have helped the Lightning out a lot last night of the game against the Panthers. Before we get to the games that are coming up here in the next week, Chris, I wanted to ask you, who are your 3 stars of the week from the last couple of games?
Man, obviously Stamkos is my number one. Dude's on fire, tied for the league in NHL in points last night. So man, Stammer the Hammer, man, he's back. So it's looking great for the captain.
The Hammer, I love that.
He's back, man. So shout out to the captain, man. I'm happy for him. I've always supported him. I all these fans that wanted to trade him is just ridiculous. It's not his fault. He's hurt. Like when he's here and he's ready to play, he's one of the best players in the league. We've all seen it before. So shout out to Stammer the Hammer, man. Number 2, honestly, after last night, I thought Cirelli had a really good game last night. Even though we lost, Cirelli had a lot of steals last night, played really well on defense. He was really, really good on the PK. So I think Cirelli so far has played pretty well. Hasn't really gotten on the scoreboard much, but his defense on the PK, it's looked really well. And then I'm going to agree with, I'm going to go with Hedman on my 3rd, man. Hedman so far, good start to the season. Looks like Hedman of old. Doesn't look like he's really hurting from the end of last season. He had that injury. He looks good. He looks healthy. So shout out to the big Swedish Hedman. How about you? What are your 3 stars? What do you got?
Well, my list is almost identical to yours, but I have one difference in mind. So I went with Stamkos as well for my number 1. Obviously, I mean, he's been unbelievable, 7 points in these last 4 games. He's been on fire. He seems like he's a man on a mission. It looks like he wants to make sure he's going to make that Canadian Olympic team. I know a lot of people had him pretty low on the list to make the team, but he is making sure that people know he is still here to play, which has been very entertaining to watch. So good for him. My number 2 star, though, I'm going to give it to Peb Belmeyer. He's really impressed me. I really like what he's done. Obviously hasn't been able to get on the score sheet just quite yet. Actually, I believe he had assists in one of the early games, but don't quote me quite on that. but he's been really good for the Lightning on the penalty kill. So I've been really happy with the way he's performed. I think he's going to really fill that hole that we're kind of experiencing without Coleman, Goodrow, and Gord. All three of those guys were really good on the penalty kill, especially Coleman and Goodrow. And Belmeyer has been really good on the penalty kill. Has been one of the top penalty killers for the Lightning. So I think he's been a real help. And I'm really excited to see how he continues to develop with the Lightning, because obviously he's only played 4 games with this team. So it's going to still take some time for him to get into the full swing of things. And then number 3, I also had Victor Hedman. 6 assists so far on the season. He's got 2 healthy knees. He looks like, as you said, the Victor Hedman that we know and love, that Norris candidate level Victor Hedman. So hopefully he can start getting some goals on the season as well and continue his defensive play that he's had. He's looked really good. So Hedman for me at number 3. So last thing I think we need to talk about is looking ahead at the upcoming schedule for the Bolts before we come back for the next podcast here. The Lightning have a couple of interesting opponents coming up. They have the Colorado Avalanche coming up this Saturday. That game will be at home against the Amalie Arena. Colorado, obviously a very good hockey team with a lot of talents. This should be another good game. Kind of reminds me of the Lightning Washington game, except this time it's at home. Then the Lightning will be playing 2 road games for the next 2. It's going to be at Buffalo, which you might think is going to be an easy win, but don't look now. But the Buffalo Sabres are currently still undefeated and one of the only undefeated teams in the NHL. Yes, you heard that right. Buffalo is currently undefeated. So definitely don't want to count them out. They could be a little bit of a threat for the Lightning. Who knows, especially with the injuries that they're dealing with right now. But then the Lightning will be headed to Pittsburgh with a rematch to the Pittsburgh Penguins, obviously this time in Pittsburgh, but that should be another good game. I believe the Penguins are still dealing with some injury problems as well. But as the Penguins showed in that first game against the Bolts, they are definitely capable of beating up on them pretty good. So definitely not an easy schedule coming up for the Lightning over this next week.
No, it's not, and it's going to be on the power play to get going, man. We need to see something against Colorado at home. That's a tough game. Buffalo away, like you said, they're 3-0. Can't overlook them, and then Penguins already took us out once, so revenge needs to be on the mind, man. Get this power play going. Get some goals in there. Get a decent lead. Stop playing from behind. Like, those are the things that we need to change in these next 3 games, which I think absolutely are all possible. It's one home game, so we should take this game at home. You know, it's Colorado, so it's going to probably be a high-scoring game, unfortunately. So Vasi needs to be in the zone. Defense needs to be ready. Buffalo can't overlook them, like you said. Talked about 3-0. You know, can't overlook that game. It's in Buffalo. They'll have a decent crowd there, I'm sure. So, you know, and then obviously at Pittsburgh, you know, we need to go out and get some revenge against Pittsburgh in their hometown. So they came in, they beat us on our opening night when we raised the banner. So revenge should be on the mind. So I think next time when we talk, I think we're going to be talking about a 3-game win streak. I think this team's going to start to show some life here a little bit, get some things going, get the power play going, and I think we'll be rocking and rolling, man.
Love that prediction. I certainly hope that is what's to come for the Lightning. Right now, they're on pace to go 41-41 as they've won both of their away games and lost both of their home games. But hopefully that flips a little bit, because I would definitely prefer to win some more home games. I'm going to be trying to get out to the Colorado game as well, so that should be exciting and looking forward to that. But yeah, three tough games coming up. The schedule does not get any easier for the Lightning right now. But we all know if they can get back to them old selves and start to build that team chemistry up with some of these new guys as well, that they'll be A-okay. This is the defending back-to-back Stanley Cup champions we are talking about right here. So hopefully they'll get back on track, and we will have a 3-game winning streak to talk about, as you mentioned, Chris. But I want to thank you all for listening, and if you could do us a huge favor and give us a follow and a like wherever you may be listening, you know, all the podcast platforms, wherever you're getting your podcast, Apple Podcasts, over on Spotify, wherever it may be. Thank you so much. We really appreciate all of you tuning in and listening. Also, be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at RBLR Sports for all the latest scores and links to all of our podcasts, including the Lightning, Rays, Bucks, and Rowdies. Chris, I'll give you the final word before we wrap this up and head on to this next week.
Man, you know, just stay positive, Bolts fans. We're fine. You know, we won back-to-back cups. That's hard to do. So like we said, it's going to be a rough start, but hang on. You know, we still got the talent. It's there, so we know we can still go for that three-peat even with Kuch out. He'll be back, so we just got to stay positive. We got to get used to losing a little bit. We can't win every game, man. You can't cry after every loss. You can't complain to cut off Cooper's head and put him on the stake and hang him in the fire, man. Like, it's okay to lose, man. It's part of sports. We all got to sit here. We can't win every game. I know we love winning. I know it's Tampa Bay, but we just got to take it easy, sit back, relax, enjoy these games, and know the Bolts are gonna come back and have a good season. So go Bolts, baby.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.